All right, let's jump right in. We're talking about Singapore today, and a real puzzle at its core. You've got this incredibly wealthy nation, right? A powerhouse of growth. But at the same time, there's this growing divide between what the top earners are making and what everyone else is. So what's really going on here? Let's dig in.
I mean, if you just look at the headline numbers, everything looks fantastic. We're talking about nominal wages, and that includes your CPF contributions growing by a super healthy 5.6% in 2024. That's a strong signal, right? It tells you the economy is really humming along.
But that's where things get complicated. That strong number, it brings up a really important question. If the economy is doing so well, why do you hear stories about people feeling left behind? Why does it feel like some folks are struggling just to keep their heads above water? And that, right there, is the big paradox we're going to unpack.
Okay, so to really get what's happening, we've got to look under the hood. You know, you can't just trust the average. That big, shiny number we just saw, it's kind of hiding what's really going on. The reality is much, much more complicated. We're seeing this massive split, a real divergence between different parts of the economy.
It's like watching two different movies at the same time. On one screen, you've got the high-skill sectors. Think finance, tech. They are absolutely booming, creating thousands and thousands of new jobs. But then you look at the other screen, sectors like food and beverage, administrative support. They're actually losing jobs. It's a tale of two economies happening all at once.
And you can bet this split has a huge impact on people's paychecks. Just look at this. The median income in finance, we're talking almost $9,000 a month. Now compare that to F&B. It's less than half that. That's not a gap, my friends. That is a chasm. And this is why that national growth we talked about just doesn't feel real for a lot of people.
So the big question is, what's behind this? What's actually causing this big split? Well, it turns out there are four major forces at play here, and they're all pulling the job market in completely opposite directions. Let's break them down.
All right, force number one. It's really just classic supply and demand. You've got these booming industries, right? Tech, finance. They are desperate for people with very specific, very advanced skills. And these aren't skills you can just pick up overnight. So when you have way more demand than supply, guess what happens? The price, in this case the salary, goes through the roof for the lucky few who have those skills.
And trust me, this isn't just a theory. The skills shortage is very, very real. Get this, almost 80% of companies say they are struggling to fill their tech jobs. And we're not talking about a small number here. The country needs something like 1.2 million more workers with digital skills by 2025. So when you have that kind of crazy imbalance, you get what's called a skill premium. Basically, insane salaries for jobs like AI scientists, which just leaves everyone else in the dust.
Okay, on to force number two. And this one's a big one. The rise of the robots. You know, automation, AI, these aren't just trendy buzzwords anymore. They're actively changing the entire job market as we speak. But here's the catch. They're not playing favorites. Their impact is, well, it's complicated.
Yeah, automation is definitely a double-edged sword. On one hand, for jobs that are pretty routine, think bookkeeping, basic customer service, automation is a threat. It pushes wages down, and it makes those jobs less secure. But on the other hand, who do you think builds and runs all this new tech? Exactly. It creates a huge surge in demand for high-skilled people who can manage these systems. This is what experts call a K-shaped recovery. One group goes up and the other goes down, creating this massive split.
Force number three is all about the power of education. In a system like Singapore's, which is built on merit, how much you learn directly translates to how much you earn. And that connection, it's stronger now than it has ever been.
Just chew on this for a second. For every extra year you spend in school, your future earnings are projected to go up by more than 13%. Every single year. I mean, that's a massive, tangible reason to go for that next degree, right?
And you can see it clearly on the ladder. You take that step from a diploma to a bachelor's degree, boom, that's about a 24% pay bump. Then you go from a bachelor's to a master's, that's another 29% on top of that. It's pretty clear what's happening here. The job market is getting sorted, in a big way, by what's on your diploma.
And that brings us to our fourth and final force, the last piece of this puzzle. It's the gender pay gap. Now, Singapore has definitely made some good progress here, But the fact is, a gap still exists between what men and women typically earn.
So let's look at the numbers. The unadjusted gap in 2023 was 14.3%. That's a bit higher than the average for similar developed countries. But here's what's really interesting. Even when you adjust for everything, same job, same industry, same age, same education, there's still a 6% gap. So what does that tell us? It points to other, trickier factors, like the fact that caregiving duties still fall more heavily on women, or maybe even unconscious bias during the hiring process.
Okay, so we've laid out the problem. We've got these four huge forces pulling things apart. The big question is, what can be done about it? How do you build a bridge across this gap? Well, Singapore isn't just sitting back. It's rolling out some very specific policies designed to do one thing: lift up the people at the bottom.
And the main tool in the toolbox is something called the Progressive Wage Model, or PWM for short. Now, this isn't your standard minimum wage. It's way smarter than that. Think of it as a built-in career ladder for lower-wage jobs. The whole idea is to connect getting paid more with learning more skills and becoming more productive.
So here's how it works in a nutshell. First, it sets a minimum wage, a floor, for different job levels. Second, it requires workers to get training to move up. Third, it lays out a clear path for them to grow. And fourth, as you climb that ladder, your pay goes up with you. It's a system designed to turn what might be a dead-end job into an actual career.
And working hand in hand with the PWM, you've got the local qualifying salary, the LQS. Right now, it's set at $1,600 a month. And here's the clever part. A company has to pay a local worker at least this much if they want that employee to count towards their quota for hiring foreign workers. It's a really smart way to stop companies from just hiring a token local at a super low salary just so they can hire more people from overseas.
So let's pull all this together. We've seen the problem, this widening gap, we've looked at the big forces causing it, and we've seen the policies trying to fix it. It's pretty clear that the only way forward is to attack this from all sides, to make sure that as the economy grows, it pulls everyone up with it.
And the roadmap for that is pretty clear. First, keep investing in lifelong learning, so people's skills match the jobs of the future. Second, do more to support the most vulnerable workers. Third, keep using and expanding those wage models like the PWM. And finally, make a real, systematic effort to close that gender pay gap for good.
Which leaves us with one last really big question. We know Singapore's economy is always changing, always evolving. It's one of its greatest strengths. But can its policies, its safety nets, evolve just as fast? Can they keep up to make sure that as the country gets richer, no one gets left behind? That's the challenge ahead.